Hello and welcome to the English Matura Express, the express to your success. My name is Maria and today we have two demonstration exams for you. Hello and welcome back to the English Matura Express. Today, as I've already told you in the intro, we have two demonstration exams for you about the very interesting topic of tolerance, a topic that I think is very important nowadays. Good, so let's have a look at the exam paper. So the introduction, like always. So you will be asked some questions about your career, future plans, etc. So you have to talk about your past. So maybe if you need some input for that, maybe have a look at our stream of last week, because there I talked about the past tenses and using the past tenses, especially in the first part of your oral exam. Yeah, go and watch it. And then you also have to talk about your future plans. So why you want to take the A-levels, what are your aims in life, so education-wise, but also family-wise, whatever. Just about past, what you're doing right now, and future plans. So, and then we have the task 1, and this time it's about types of discrimination. So you have to talk about discrimination. And so what's the situation? You are a youth worker and have organized a meeting in a local youth center to inform young people, so informing examiners, about different forms of discrimination. So what is your role? You are a youth worker. Where do you have to talk? In a local youth center. So that's the situation, that's the surrounding. So act like you are a youth worker. Good. And so you talk about discrimination, of course, and then you go into detail. You define discrimination. So what is discrimination? You talk about different types of discrimination. So why can someone or somebody be discriminated, for what reasons, and then possible reasons for discrimination. I mean, there shouldn't be any reasons, but there are, of course, so what could be possible, can be possible reasons for it. So let's move on to task number 2, the dialogue. Also great fun. It's about racism, and it's after your talk you open the discussion up to questions from a listener about racist bullying. Use the information from the attached text, record number of UK children excluded for racist bullying, as well as your own ideas during the conversation. And here's the link. So here it is in blue. So maybe go and have a look at the article. I think it's a very interesting article, and it's about racism and bullying, so a very current topic and with good vocabulary for you to improve. So if you sometimes struggle with finding words, finding good B2 level words that you need to use in your A-level exam, go and have a look at all our articles, and just underline some vocab that you think is good or helpful for you. Helpful for you, and I think that's a good way to improve your vocabulary range. And then of course again there is a follow-up discussion. So you take a part in a short discussion about the topic tolerance. So maybe there are some more questions from the examiners, and once again I would really recommend you to think of a question so that you can ask them, because sometimes it's like, okay, any questions, and then you don't really have one, and maybe it's just like, what do you think about tolerance? I mean, it's a question, but it's not really a good one, or not really well thought out. So maybe if you have time in your preparation, try to think of a question that you want to ask the examination board. Good. That's about it with the first exams. Do we have any questions concerning the first exam? So of course, if you
So far,
if something
we
is
don't
unclear,
have any questions. But we might get some questions.
Yeah, hopefully. Good. So now let's start. Chris is here today, and
Hello.
where is he? Yeah, here he is. Yeah,
I'm here.
and he's the lucky one who has to do the oral exam for you. So
For you, yeah.
isn't that nice? Okay, good.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes, I'm so ready for it.
Oh, wait.
I just have to position my notes here so that I can easily read them, since I'm an old man and my eyes are not that good anymore.
Wait, because today it's not a PDF, so I'm not able to write on it, but I will take the notes in the old-fashioned way.
Ah, yeah.
Okay.
It's always good.
Yeah.
Good.
Good. So. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Can you please introduce yourself briefly? Just tell us what you did before, why you are here today, and are there any future plans?
Yes, of course. So my name is Chris.
What a surprise.
What a surprise. I started to do a apprenticeship as a mechanic in a local workshop, and I really liked it, actually, and I still do like it, or I still do like repairing cars, fixing gearboxes and stuff. And I also like to ride motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
But with the time came knowledge.
Okay.
And I decided to go another path in my life. And therefore, I decided to become a biologist.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah. So you want to study biology?
Yes.
Here in Innsbruck, or?
Yes, Innsbruck. I really like Innsbruck. I grew up here, and therefore, I've decided to stay here with my friends and just have a look at the studies. Maybe I don't like it, but I want to try it out since I'm really interested in biology, and I can imagine that I'll be working someday in research, basically.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Thank you. So yeah, let's move on to task number 1, the monologue. If you're ready, you can just start.
Yes, of course. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, today we're gonna talk about tolerance and discrimination. At first, I'm going to talk about the definition of discrimination. Then I'm going to talk about the different types of discrimination, which types there are. And then last but not least, I'll talk about the possible reasons for discrimination. With that being said, I'd like to start with the first point or first topic of today, which is the definition of discrimination. I think discrimination always involves something that harms a person. I'm sorry, pardon me. A person in a physical but also more psychological way, I think. So there's always some harm involved, closely connected to discrimination. Of course, discrimination is also a thing that is very subjective, I think. And therefore, I'd like to continue with the different types, since I think it's more easier to explain it with the different forms. So, for example, if race is an issue, we talk about racial discrimination, which involves, for example, black people that are discriminated because of their race, or maybe the way they look, or the same goes with, of course, Caucasian, the Caucasian type or race type, if we can. I don't want to talk about race types actually. Caucasian people or Asian people, of course, if people are discriminated or bullied, I can also describe it as bullied because of their race. Basically, that's one of the first types I'd like to mention. Other discrimination than the race discrimination because of race is, of course, discrimination because of a body feature some might not have. For example, if you are a bit overweight and you don't fit into the norm or what people expect to be the norm or the standard, and you get discriminated because of your weight or because you're really very small or something, that's discrimination because of your body type. Another very popular type of discrimination nowadays, and it has become more important over the years to stand up for such discrimination, is gender, of course. Mostly women, and there is also direct and indirect discrimination. Direct discrimination is, for example, if you're discriminated because of your height and you don't get a job because of it. Indirect discrimination is more like hidden discrimination, so not very obvious aspects at first, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a third point.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I missed that point. Reasons for discrimination. Of course. Reasons, I've already mentioned some of the reasons for discrimination, but I think it all goes back to if we think about nations or discrimination because somebody is from a different country, not race, it all goes back to where, I don't know when, where the thought was established that people think in nations rather than in people. So, and of course, this is a good reason, I think. And I think discrimination because of race is also has something to do with slave trade that was happening and the superiority of the white man and all that stuff. We know all about it. Yeah, that's the possible two reasons because for discrimination. Of course, there are a lot of other reasons, but I just wanted to mention those two.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So now let's go on to task number 2, the dialogue.
Yes.
So you've read the text about racist bullying. So can you just briefly explain what is it? What can we So what is racist bullying? What forms are there? So how does it happen?
Yeah, basically racist bullying is almost like racist discrimination, but of course bullying mostly happens in a community or gathering that takes place in certain institutions or a workplace, for example, or schools or so. If there are more people and there are also different people in these communities,
Okay.
racial discrimination. Racist bullying happens more often. So, for example, if we think about
forms or what could happen, or how can
yeah, for example, if there is a child or student in a class that is has a different skin color, for example, than all the others in this class. There are some, no, not there are, maybe there are some people that start to bully him or her because of his or her skin color.
so that he or she gets rejected or
Yeah,
just not
rejected,
accepted
excluded,
yeah. Okay, so in the article it's more like about UK school children. So what do you think, what's the situation in schools in Austria? Is there racist bullying, and
Yeah.
what do you think?
If we compare it to the British school system or the British schools, of course, in the UK there are a lot of people that immigrated to the UK. So a lot of people from India, for example. And the same goes with Austria. There are a lot of people that immigrated to Austria in the last century, I think, from Turkey. And of course, there are a lot of people in classes that are from Turkish descent and also look like it, of course. And therefore, I think in Austria it's also a problem.
Yeah.
For example, that mostly those people get discriminated or are bullied. And since Austria is a very conservative country, people or even students tend to do it in a more not extreme way, but a more
it's just accepted in our country.
Yeah, so it's, although people should try to prevent the pupils from it,
Yeah.
it
But
still happens.
If parents or
Yeah.
I mean even teacher do the same, that could be the real problem behind this issue. So yeah, that leads me to my last question. So how could how should the government or how could anyone intervene to get rid of this problem, to racist bullying? What should we do? Or
Very,
that's a difficult question.
Difficult
I think
question,
there is no real
but
answer, but I mean.
Yeah, maybe I think the best thing to do is awareness, raise people's awareness, do maybe special classes on it, or
maybe like focus more on the similarities we have. That could be
yeah.
I mean, of course there are always differences, but I think there are more similarities. I mean, they are all kids.
Or maybe we should start with history and repeat or revise some of the things that happened in the past. And yeah, so maybe
Learn
this,
from it,
yeah.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
That's about it. Yeah. Okay. So that was the demonstration exam. Sorry, about tolerance, discrimination, and racism. So yeah, let's give him some feedback. Maybe do you have some feedback for him? Is there some feedback? No.
So far we don't
So far we
have
don't, so
any feedback.
no, it's my turn to give him some feedback. Good. So the intro was good again, very fluent, and he talked a lot. So he not only used to and now he really elaborated his reasons for why he wants to become a biologist, and that's very good. He felt very safe doing that. So if you really want to yeah, you can really talk about it and yeah, just take the time and talk about yourself. Yeah, good. Now let's move on to the first part, to the monologue. So he gave a good intro, good greeting. So he was aware of his role as a youth worker. Bullet point number one was about the definition of discrimination. I think, yeah, that's always a very difficult thing to do, to define something. And so he didn't spend a lot of time on it, but that's fine because, I mean, it's just a definition and he gave one. Good. Then second point, different types of discrimination. He gave a lot of reasons, a lot of forms. So he talked about racial discrimination, even about indirect and direct. So he gave a lot of examples, which is very good. What he could have added was like talking about disabilities, so the discrimination of handicapped people, that's another form, maybe good to mention. And yeah, then he almost missed the third point, but that's no problem at all because it's of course I am, as an examiner, I'm here to interact, and that's also a very important point of your exam. You have to be able to interact. So if there are any questions like, oh, what about point 3, and then oh yeah, and then just start and yeah, sorry about me, and now I will go on. So that's completely fine because that could happen all the time, so that you kind of miss a point, but then you are aware of it and you can just go on. So that's fine. The dialogue, I struggled a little bit at first with my question. I'm sorry for that, but yeah, I'm tired. No, of course, sometimes it's also hard to find the right words or the right question. And yeah, we talked about what it is. He explained that his experiences in schools in Austria. I mean, he talked about schools in Austria. He could have included his experiences. That's always a good thing to do because you went to school, so maybe what happened in your school, and maybe that's easier to talk about. And he gave good strategies how to get rid of this problem. So yeah, good job, Chris. Well
Thank
done.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so now that brings us to the next demonstration exam, because we not only have one demonstration exam, we have 2 demonstration exams for you. Good, so let's just switch. Here it is. It's, again, surprise, about tolerance, and this time it's about men and women. Attention, a lot of students tend to say women, so like singular, but it's women in the plural and men. Very important. Okay, again, we have the introduction. I think we will skip the introduction this time because, yeah, I think now you all know how to do it and you all know that he wants to become a biologist. Or maybe you change your mind now, but no.
No, I still want
You
to
still
become.
want to become a biologist, so yeah, we stick with that. Good. And then task number 1, the monologue about men and women. I made a mistake. There's an A. Should be an E. I'm sorry. As you are an activist fighting for gender equality, a school has invited you on the International Women's Day here it's correct, Women's Day, to inform students about women's rights. Yeah? What are the bullet points? Bullet point number 1, the development of women's rights, then women's rights today, so including examples of inequality that still exists. So is there inequality, gender gap, for example, and then the possible progress of gender equality in the future. So that's, again, you have just to think about. There is no real answer to it, but what would you say, as you know, what it's like today, now, and what it was like in the past, so what could happen. Good, then we have task 2, the dialogue, about multicultural relationships. Yeah, I'll read it for you. After your talk, you open the discussion up to questions from your listeners about multicultural relationships. Use the information from the attached text, what's behind the rise of interracial marriage in the US, as well as your own ideas during the conversation. Again, here we have the link. Have a look at it. It's a good read, I guess. No, I know because I've read it. And yeah, again, to just broaden your horizon and also to enlarge your range of vocabularies. And yeah, Chris, are you ready or do you need some more?
Yes, I'm so ready for it.
That's great. So now I would just get my notes again.
Are you ready?
Not really. Yeah.
Hello, again.
Hi. So, yeah, we skipped the introduction, so now let's just move on to... do you want to do
No.
the introduction? Okay. You seemed sad about it. It's fine.
It's short amount of time. I was really sad about it, but
Okay, but now you...
yeah, we can continue, of course.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Okie dokie. So, then, now, please, let's go on to task number 1, the monologue. Start whenever you're ready.
Yes. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, today I'm gonna talk about the gender equality. And in my talk, I'm gonna touch upon the topics development of women's rights, then women's rights today, including some examples of inequality that still exist to the present day, and possible progress of gender equality in the future. So I'd like to start with the development of women's rights. So basically it all started in the year of 1918 in Austria, where the suffrage for women was allowed. So suddenly women were allowed to vote. Of course, before this happened, or before this law was passed, women tried to become a more important part of society, because they were sick of being suppressed by men, by their husbands, and being the second wheel, and just focusing on household chores and all the stuff. And of course they wanted change, but at first women weren't allowed to be aware of something. Therefore, there wasn't any movement. But with time came knowledge, and the women women started to be more active and, for example, dress provocatively or dress unconventional, for example, not like the society wanted them to look like. So this developed, and nowadays we are one step further, I'd say, but of course there's a lot of work to do. But this work shouldn't be done only by women. And of course it developed, and I think it was Liechtenstein Switzerland, I think, was the last country to legalize suffrage for women. And it was in 1980 or something. So you have to imagine it, how this development isn't that old, actually, unfortunately. So women's rights today are, I think, a very different topic, and I think I'd best sketch it out with the topic of wage. So how much you get paid, how much women and men get paid in the same position. Normally men get paid more, still get paid more in Austria. It's just a normal thing for Austrians to do, I think. For the people living in Iceland, it's not that big a gap, or almost no gap, I think. Even the Icelandic women do also bear children, so yeah. Of course, that's the argument, mainly the argument that women have to leave the work, not have, but might leave their workplaces at some time because they are biologically forced to bear children and or to give birth to children, of course. And yeah, therefore some people argue that there must be a gap in their payday, or a difference in their payday. But I think it has more to do with traditional gender roles and progress of gender equality in the future. I hope there is a progress towards almost equal payday. I don't know if that happens, depends on the government, of course, and on the people who vote for certain parties. But it hopefully might develop also in a gender that, or not a gender, sondern a sex that has the same possibilities as the male sex. So yeah, it's very difficult, I think, but there will be change, since nowadays there are a lot of women's rights movement and all stuff. So yeah, it has all to do with education, basically. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. So now let's move on to task number 2, the dialogue about multicultural relationships. So Marty So there is, in the text, it said there is a rise of interracial marriages in the US. So can you just, so why is there a rise in the US? How can you explain that? And what are multicultural relationships to start with? Yeah.
Yeah. So multicultural.
Interracial.
Interracial marriages are basically if there is one race type marrying another race type. It's really don't want to talk in race types, but if, for example, a Hispanic marries a Caucasian or a white man or woman, that's interracial marriage. So the reason why it became more popular or interracial marriages gained or increased in the US is because they legalized interracial marriages in 1967, I think. But it depends on where you are, so in which place. So for example, in Jackson, in Mississippi, there are, I think, only 4% are interracial marriages, whereas in California there are way more interracial marriages. And
so you mean it depends on where you live in the US?
Yeah.
There are interracial marriages, but it's more like, where, yeah, okay.
So
how could you explain that? Why in some area, why there are more in some areas and less in others?
It basically depends on the I forgot everything now. No, it depends on how people think, and it also refers back to history, I think. So if we focus on, or if we take, for example, the southern states in America, Mississippi and Texas and so on, they're very conservative and have very traditional gender roles, but also are very proud of the white race, I'd say. So there are a lot of right-wing people, I think.
Ku Klux Klan, yeah.
So I don't want to throw them all in one pot, but
of course not, yeah. But
it's I mean,
there are numbers.
How it is, yeah.
There are just more like right.
And therefore, of course, interracial marriages are not that common or not that
there,
super accepted, I'd say. Whereas in California or Hawaii, there are a lot of interracial marriages, yeah.
What's the situation in Austria? So are there a lot of interracial marriages?
Yeah, I don't think so, actually. Of course, there are occasional marriages between I think I know about one marriage where a Turkish guy married an Austrian woman, so something there, of course.
But it's also not that prominent
no.
isn't it? Yeah.
Actually not. It's
but
very traditional especially in Tyrol, in Austria. But especially in Tyrol, I think it's very traditional, and being different than the others. So the others are the Tyroleans. Still makes up a big part of being accepted, I think. Yeah, and therefore, it's all about the innate. Can't think of it right now.
Never mind.
I lost the thread totally, but I wanted to say I think it's all about the innate attitude.
You have it.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Okay. Yes.
Uh,
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Today. So, do we have any comments now?
So far, we unfortunately don't have any comments. But we might get some in the last 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, that could be. So now let's give Chris his feedback again. So we didn't do the introduction, but he would have done it fine. So that's good. And then task number 1, the monologue. Again, good greeting. And what's really good, so you should really do that in your oral exam. He gave a good overview. So like, okay, first I'm going to talk about, then I will, and my last point. That makes it very easy to listen and easy to follow, as it's good structured. So try to structure your speech, especially the beginning of it. It makes it a lot easier for your listeners and for yourself, I think, because it's not very difficult to do so. You just have to study it first and then second and at the end. And yeah, it makes a good first impression. Good. Then the bullet points. He, of course, talked about the development of women's rights. He did a really good job, and he mentioned a lot of historical facts. Of course, you don't have to know the dates by heart, but if so, it's really good. And again, it's very impressive to know dates. And he talked about a second wheel. I think it's a third wheel, isn't it? But I don't know.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, but anyways.
I was so nervous.
Yeah, but yeah, of course. It's an examination atmosphere here in this studio, and we have people who are watching us, so yeah, that's very scary. It is. Good. And the second point, women's rights today. He also talked about that. He had a lot of knowledge. He talked about the gender pay gap, very important chapter to look at. And at first he also talked about the right to vote, and the third, the progress of gender equality in the future. He mentioned the importance of education, what I think is also very important, education, okay? Good. What he could have done, but he didn't, was like a kind of, not a conclusion, but like, okay, thanks for listening if you have any questions, because that's the way, that's a good way to show your examiner, okay, I'm done, because otherwise you're just staring at the student and like, okay, is that all? Okay, so that's a good way to end it. Like, just thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and that's it. But yeah, now let's move on to the second part, to the second task about multicultural relationships. Again, a lot of knowledge, not only about the US, but also about Austria, and also very deep knowledge about the different parts of the US, because we all know the US, it's called a melting pot, but still it's very different, and it really depends on where you are, how it is, and how the people act. Course, again, not all. That's always difficult with these topics, because you tend to generalize, but of course it's not the case. Not everybody is the same. I think we all know that. So he also talked about that, and I think he gave a lot of information on it, also about, again, the situation in Austria. I totally agree with his arguments, and but of course it's not only about arguments, also about structuring, and he did a really good job too with it. So that's basically it with our 2 demonstration exams about tolerance. I know it is a very difficult topic, and many students say, I won't pick tolerance, but I think it's not really a bad topic, because there is a lot, you can find a lot in the media, in newspapers. There are many videos about issues, about very current issues, the Me Too. You can talk about Me Too, and just a lot of things about that. So maybe pick this topic. or not, or you can just leave it. Yeah, so that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the stream. If so, please hit the like button, and also do not forget to subscribe to our channel, because we post new videos, new English videos every Monday and Wednesday. And that leads me to the end of the stream. So on Wednesday there will be another stream, this time with Chris as an online trainer. And what is it about your stream?
Can't think of it because
But it will be very interesting, that's for sure. So it's a surprise stream. And yeah, so that's about it. Thanks a lot. And yeah, we see us, or you see us, or Chris, next week. Good. Bye bye. Leave some comments. And yeah, have fun with The Bachelor or whatever. And have a good night. Bye bye.